For many months, we've been coming to this podium calling for a bipartisan budget agreement for a number of reasons. One, to stop the devastating sequester cuts from hurting our middle class, our military, our National Institutes of Health, and on and on. This agreement does that. We've also asked that there be equal spending increases for defense and non-defense. The agreement does that. This agreement is not perfect, and we all know that, but it does address both investment in domestic priorities that benefit the middle class and also takes care of defense spending. And it ensures that every dollar of investment in defense is matched by a dollar of investment in a strong economy and a strong middle class. This will allow us to fund priorities like the life-saving research at NIH. We watched something at our caucus today, what's going on at NIH. The doctor was so impressed, that it is this doctor scientist, that he teared up, just explaining what they were doing for this little girl. It also protects Social Security disability benefits from deep cuts and protects many seniors from a 53% increase in Medicare premiums. It takes the threat off a catastrophic default and extends that until March 2017, which is good. This agreement is a victory over the loudest, most extreme voices in the Republican Party. Passing into law will be a victory for common sense and for the middle class, and also for how this body works. This is how we should be doing things. Democrats and Republicans working together to come up with something that's good for the country. This is a victory for the country. There are no political winners or losers in this. It's just good for the country. Our work is not done, though. I hope that the Republicans, with the new leadership that they have in the House, or they will have in a day or two, continue to work with Democrats to pass legislation generally. And I would hope this week we can move on and do Murray-Ryan number 2, and that's basically what this is. An outline to fund our government at a respectable rate for the next 2 years. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Senator Reid. It was over 150 days ago that we stood before you and said it was time to negotiate a budget agreement. We have one, and I hope that it ends up being enacted by both the House and the Senate, and maybe as soon as this week. Was it worth the effort? It certainly was. At the end of the day, we're going to have $33 billion more to spend on the defense side. We need it. Instead of a continuing resolution, this money can be well spent to keep America safe. Equally important, another $33 billion on the non-defense side. And this could be a game changer as far as I'm concerned. When we took a look at the Veterans Bill that came before the Appropriations Committee, many of us joined Senator Tester in opposing it. There wasn't enough money in the Republican bill to serve our veterans. Now we're going to have resources to reconsider that, and I hope adequately fund it. And let me put in a word, too, and I hope everyone joins this chorus. We need to make a sincere, long-standing commitment to research in America. This has got to be one of the pillars of every one of our budget agreements. The National Institutes of Health receives a 5% increase in the Republican appropriation bill. We've got to protect it when we get into conference with the House of Representatives, and also with the Center for Disease Control and other areas where critical research is being done. And I also want to make sure that we put the proper investment in education. If we don't make sure that young kids have a fighting chance early in their lives to get basic education, basic exposure to dealing with other kids and a classroom experience, we'll pay for it for a lifetime. That's the kind of investment that needs to be made in America. It wasn't in the original Republican budget bill. It's in this budget agreement. I want to salute the President of the United States for standing tall and standing tough when it came to the debt ceiling. He said there'll be no deals. We're not going to be cutting any shortcuts when it comes to the full faith and credit of the United States. He stood by it. He achieved it. That's critical for the growth of our economy. And this budget agreement, too, moves us in the right direction, a 2-year plan that gives us, I guess, an opportunity as appropriators to appropriate. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And, you know, for month after month, Senate Democrats called for budget negotiations until we were blue in the face. We called again and again for a budget that relieves the harmful cuts known as sequestration and lifts caps on defense and domestic spending in an equal and balanced way. For most of the year, Republicans rejected our request. You may remember us standing here over and over again and saying, negotiate. And the Republicans rejected those requests, seemed intent on heading down a path to brinksmanship, confrontation, hostage politics, and economic disaster. Well, we're relieved. They finally peered over the cliff and decided to turn back and negotiated a budget agreement with us, good for national defense, good for middle-class families. Neither side would argue it's perfect, which is a clear sign of a good compromise. But the outline of the agreement reflects exactly what Democrats have been calling for since the spring: sequester relief, equal increases for defense and non-defense, and a clean increase in the debt limit. And if you would have told me that we'd get an increase over 2 years of $112 billion, I would have said, that's not going to happen. But we did. So this is finally going to relieve the stranglehold that sequester has had on government agency after government agency, whether it be NIH or transportation or education, and this is good for the middle class. The ultimate endgame of Republican leaders was not really achieved, to force us to come to their way by first trying to push defense appropriations bills through with no consensus, and then by saying they were going to either shut down the government or let us default unless they got their way. But by sticking together as a caucus, the White House, House Democrats, Senate Democrats, we've achieved a victory for the American people. By working together, we've taken the threat of default and shutdowns, a weapon that hard-right Republicans have held. Well, I blew that one. A weapon that hard-right Republicans have held over the country like a sword of Damocles, off the table for the remainder of the presidency. I think all of us here join millions of middle-class American families around the country in breathing one big sigh of relief.
Senator Murray.
Well, yes, you know, we've been calling for months on the Republicans to work with us. For months, we have been asking them to join us at the table and put politics aside and build on the bipartisan budget deal in 2013. And for months, we have been saying the path forward should be clear. There is no reason to wait. Well, even though it took an extension, it took a debt limit deadline and a Speaker's resignation to pull the Republicans to the table, I am very glad that we are finally able to work with us to get this done. Just like the deal that we did in 2013, this 2-year budget will restore investments in health care, education, research, and defense jobs. It will pull us back from the constant crises, and it will once again demonstrate to people across the country that Congress can do its job when Republicans push the Tea Party aside and work with us to get results. This bipartisan budget deal is not the budget that Democrats would have written on their own, and I'm quite sure it's not the budget that Republicans would have written on their own. But working together to end this latest budget crisis and restore these critical investments is an important step forward in a Congress that is far too gridlocked far too often. So now let's keep that work going. We have a lot more work to do to create jobs, help our families, and do everything we can to grow our economy from the middle out, not from the top down, and I'm hoping that Republicans will finally see that the only way to get anything done in a divided government is to work with us, not just to pander to their base.
The model of what we were able to accomplish was you, Patty, so we appreciate what you did 2 years ago. It was impossible, and you were such a tremendous help in setting the tone for how we got this done. Questions? Well, I hope so, but we hope. I feel confident that the vast majority of the Democrats will. Yes. I'm so sorry. There's too much noise.
Paul Ryan has distanced himself from the process to strike this deal, saying it's
Well, it's the same process he used with Patty Murray 2 years ago, so he should go back and look at his clippings. Yeah.
A few weeks ago, you stood there and said you wanted some understandings about policy riders. Do you have some understandings going forward? Are you confident that you're...
We had a good discussion with the president yesterday. We had an excellent discussion in the caucus today. We are holding hands with the president, and we're all holding hands. We are not going to deal with these vexatious riders. And we feel comfortable and confident that that would violate the sense of this agreement. This is not what it's about. It's about getting something done, fund the government, and we're going to be vigilant and make sure that there aren't these vexatious riders that will hurt the country.
Literally, what about shifting money out of the Social Security Trust Fund to shore up the Social Security disability insurance? Do you have any concerns about that?
No, what we've done is extended the life of Social Security for 7 more years. It is something that's long overdue and was totally fair.
I think it's your input on a dispute within the Democratic presidential primary over the 1996 Defensive Marriage Act. Over the weekend, Secretary Clinton said the law was a defensive measure aimed at stopping worse anti-discrimination in the form of a constitutional amendment, but Senator Sanders is accusing her of rewriting history.
Well,
Regulation 19 years ago.
I'm not going to get involved in their politics, but I am going to say this. I think it's time for this country to look forward, not backwards. And I'm satisfied that we've made a lot of progress with issues relating to LBJ, let's see, lesbian, gay. Anyway, what are the letters? What is it?
LGBT.
Just what I was going to say.
We've made progress with LBJ also.
That play was terrific. But anyway, the point is this. We've made a lot of progress. We need to look forward. And is there more progress that can be made? Of course there is. But I'm not going to re-argue what went on years ago. I think we should look at where we are now and how far we need to go in the future. One more question.
Senator Reid, did you meet with Speaker Boehner today, and what was can you tell us about that, what the purpose was?
No. Thanks. I met with him, but...
Ask LBJ
What a BLT.
at the AMP.